have other things to do. The second is that he didn't say it could happen. I see something in the sky, it could be him or not. The third is the attitude of a soldier who realizes that if he does not observe diligently, it could cost him his life. Jesus used the term clock to mean paying close attention to how you are living your life. His behavior will have some unintended consequences, regardless of what his intentions are. When we think about meeting Jesus, do we see it as a lifelong journey or something we can join together in an instant by saying, "Oh God, forgive me"? If it is a lifelong walk, we are waiting for Jesus to return by getting our lives in order now. 743 If we see Jesse's return as something we can gather with a simple prayer, we will try to wait until the last possible moment to prepare to meet him. Like Tyrone, we're going to want to get that last half hour of sleep instead of doing what's the most important thing to do right now. In our reading of the New Testament we find the story of the 10 virgins, 5 of whom were considered wise and 5 of whom were considered foolish. Their intention was to be ready when the groom came to claim his bride. Now in the 1st century, the groom would come with his friends to the bride's house where she would be waiting with her friends. The two sides would march through the streets with lit candles and lamps. The virgins or maid of honor would be responsible for lighting the streets so that everyone could see the bride and groom. Together they would end up at the groom's house with people cheering on the group. Once at home, those who had been invited would enter the house and the others would remain outside, closing the door. The real celebration would take place behind closed doors to the guests. In the story, the 10 virgins were all members of the wedding party. Very often an announcement would come out, here the groom would come and everyone would get ready and start leaving, but it would be a false alarm. Before the groom arrived at the bride's house, there were often delays. There would be negotiations about what the groom would have to bring as gifts to the bride's family. Both sides would delay negotiations to give the appearance of how valuable the bride was. Therefore, it was very common for the groom to arrive much later than expected. Of the 10 women, 5 of them not only had their lamps lit during the procession, but they had also bought some oil to pour into their lamps. The other 5 had lamps, but no oil. They were ready for the groom to arrive, but they weren't really ready. They were dressed appropriately and had been invited by the bride to be part of her wedding party. They were in the right house with the right people. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, the 5 fools had every intention of getting the oil, because they knew they would need oil in the procession. They even had money to buy the oil. But something happened to them that they had not planned. They started talking to each other and continuing to have such a good time that no one was looking at the clock. The groom and his group had not yet come, and they fell asleep. Now there is nothing wrong with falling asleep, except that it is difficult to see and be asleep at the same time. Do you know that if you had been there to see those 10 virgins, if you had not seen those 5 little jars with a little oil, you would not have been able to tell them apart. The lamps even look the same. They could all be used to turn on some light. Jesus is giving us this story as a warning. In the church, he is letting us know that some of us are here in the church and we have said, we are living for the Lord, but we really are not. If Jesus came today and took away the church, this place would not be empty. Postponed good intentions will cause many people to miss out on the good wishes of their lives. It is going to cause many of us as Christians great shame and embarrassment when we stand before Jesus Christ to give an account of what we have done with our lives. Those 5 foolish virgins seemed ready. They seemed really ready. The reality is that they were headed for great disappointment. They were going through the motions, but they didn't have what it took. But then came the real thing. The negotiations were over. The word came out, the boyfriend is leaving his house and coming to claim his girlfriend. Well, the bride and bridal party were running